Hello, and thanks for joining the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs for our Wednesday webinar, where we'll be talking about security beyond passwords today. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we've kind of gotten a late start to this topic due to the Hurricane Helene and the webinars we did around disaster recovery and disaster scams. But for the rest of October, we're going to hold our Wednesday webinars kind of focusing on simple and effective ways you can improve cybersecurity. And of course, that includes today's topic, security beyond passwords. So kind of wanted to start with our 4 easy ways to stay safe online. Again, because it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we'll just kind of start with these quick practical tips that you can do to protect your information and protect your money. And these are all kind of resources that the FBI, Homeland Security, and other cybersecurity experts all recommend. And the first two are kind of the things that we'll focus on a good bit today, using a strong, unique password and requiring two-factor authentication on all of your accounts whenever it's available. That's a great tool that you can use, and we'll go into that a good bit here in a few minutes. But we also want to remind you to keep your software updated on your phone and on your computer and any kind of apps that you might have. Make sure all those are updated, and you can set up automatic updates of those, and that's just going to help protect you against any vulnerabilities that may be out there. And of course, we want to remind you just to kind of keep an eye out and recognize those signs of phishing attempts and scams that are out there, and don't just click on anything that comes into your email and text messages, especially. And since we're kind of talking about security beyond passwords, we're going to give you a quick little password refresher to make sure we're all using strong passwords to protect our accounts. And this is going to protect you in a good bit of ways, but something that I was reading just a few minutes ago kind of compared using an easy guess password, locking your door and leaving the key in the lock. So we want to make sure that we're not doing that, right? So weak passwords can be quickly broken into by computer hackers. So we're going to go over some tips to make sure everything's locked away safely and it's hard to get that information. And kind of our first step with this is going to be using a password that is at least 12 characters long. In general, I tell people longer is stronger with your passwords, right? Longer passwords going to be the easiest way to increase the strength. And you want to use uppercase, lowercase letters with those and add in some symbols. You can kind of make it even stronger by making those random. So if it's not a real word, something just kind of random, that's going to give you the most strength with that. And a password manager is going to help you kind of make sure that you're not forgetting those types of things too. So that might be a good option for you as well. But if you're somebody who's not kind of too sure about passwords or password managers, and you're kind of intimidated about picking a password manager, another thing you can also do is kind of pick a memorable phrase that might work for you. So you might pick out something, just kind of a bunch of words added together with no spaces. So you might put something like big red dog chases his tail is kind of the thing I wrote. You would just kind of make that your password, maybe put some numbers in there and a couple of symbols, and you would have a pretty strong password. And you also want to make sure you're avoiding common words, phrases, or anything that's kind of related to your personal life. We'll kind of get into that in a few minutes, but just make sure those are passwords that aren't really connected to your personal life and something that somebody would easily guess if they know a little bit about you. And there are some tools that you can use to kind of check how strong your password is. This is one that we've pulled, and if you've downloaded the slides, this link should work for you, that you can just click that and go straight to it. And it's the University of Illinois at Chicago's Academic Computing and Communications Center. They have a password strength test on their website, and it's just kind of run locally on your local machine. They don't send your password that you put in there over the network or anything like that, but it's kind of a neat tool. And I'm going to click on that. Hopefully it will load up for you here so you can see it, but you can just kind of go in here. I'm going to unclick hide password. So, we can do what I was kind of saying earlier, and as I go, you'll see kind of the strength of that going up. And then I'm very strong right now, but then if I start to enter some numbers, it's going to get, increasingly strong. And I'm putting some symbols on there too, and you'll see kind of those bonuses going up there as well. So again, long, strong, and then you'll just kind of put in those numbers and symbols. A lot of people like to put the 0 instead of the O there or something like that. Instead of putting dog, they might do D, then 0, G, but you can kind of do whatever works for you. But again, kind of random is the kind of recommended thing, to make it kind of random. So maybe not necessarily phrases, but you can use phrase if that's kind of what you're comfortable with. That's better than, picking something that's easily guessed. So anything you can do to make it longer will be kind of that thing that will make it stronger for you. And again, kind of as we refresh on passwords here, just kind of quick reminder not to reuse passwords on all of your accounts. And that's just simply so if a hacker gets, password for one account, they're not going to be able to use it to get into all of your other accounts. And again, you might want to consider a password manager. A lot of us, one of the things I always hear from people when we go out in the community is, they have a hard time remembering all the, dozens of passwords that we all have now. So a password manager is something that can help you. And, just kind of the thing with that is just make sure you're using a company that's reputable. And you can kind of go to some of your favorite, maybe computer review sites or something like that, or talk to other people that maybe family or friends, church members or whatever, and just kind of see what they use, see if they have one that they would recommend. But you want to make sure you're using strong passwords, and then you can secure that in the password manager. Kind of the idea is you remember that one strong password for your password manager, and then it's kind of storing all those other random passwords for you. And we've got a little resource there that is pretty good as well, staysafeonline.org. They're a group of cybersecurity experts and people in the cybersecurity field, and they've put together kind of some information on password managers and things you can look for if you're considering using one. So that's a pretty good resource as well for you. And again, if you're picking security questions to be able to get into a website or into your, financial accounts or email accounts or whatever, you want to make sure that you're picking those security questions that only you know the answer to. So a lot of times things like your mother's maiden name may be a security question, but if, that information is easily found on your Facebook or your Twitter account or anything like that, you want to make sure that you're not using security questions that would be easy to get that answer to. And then kind of a good reminder is always change those passwords quickly. If there's a security breach, you may get those notices in email or in the mail that those accounts may have been breached by a hacker or whatever, or those passwords are on the dark web. So if you get those notices, you may want to change those passwords immediately. And again, just kind of make sure you're not using those same passwords on multiple accounts. That will help you as well. And a lot of internet browsers will kind of help you manage passwords too. They might help you monitor security issues around those passwords. So kind of want to just give you a quick look at how Google operates. Both Google and Microsoft both kind of have similar setups, and they're going to help you look for strong, unique passwords that you might have in there. If you go to the settings, usually I think that's on the top right. When you click those little 3 buttons or whatever, that will bring up the settings for you. But then with Google Chrome, you'll want to look for the button that says autofill and passwords, and that's there on the left side. And then once you've done that, you'll look for the Google Password Manager. And once you have that opened up, you're going to look for this little checkup section there. Again, that's on the left side of the screen. And once you click that, you'll kind of see a couple of different things. In my case here, when I ran it on the account I was using, it said no compromised passwords. So that's a good thing. But it's also telling me that we have 2 passwords that are reused and that we should go in and create some unique passwords for that. So that's a pretty good tool that they have there, that they recognize that I've used 2 passwords. So they're saying I should go in there, click that button. It'll kind of help me go to those accounts and change those passwords. And it'll also pick up if you have a weak password or not. So in my case here, we have one weak password that again is saying we should go in there, find something that's strong, and again, you're going to want to make those unique. And I wanted to kind of give you a quick look at another example of that. This is not one for one of my accounts, but one that one of our other employees did. And when they checked it, you'll see they had 8 compromised passwords and 241 weak passwords. There's a lot of weak passwords that are saved in this account here. So they would want to go in and make sure that they're taking all those steps to kind of secure all of those, especially the compromised ones, but they would also want to go in and update a good deal of passwords here. Hopefully you don't have that many saved in there that need to be adjusted, but you know, I know a lot of us save a lot of different passwords for a lot of different accounts, and that's kind of why a password manager may be a great idea for you here. You know, I also kind of wonder if those 241 weak passwords are the same one over and over, but that's what happens, right? So we're trying to catch all these things here today. But if you've got those notices, like we said, this one, they'll go in and it will say, you know, this particular password was found in a data breach 5 months ago. So hopefully you've caught that. You know, see one up at the top that says 7 days ago. So hopefully you would catch those pretty quickly, especially if they're in a data breach or something like that. And you can go in, find those passwords and go in those settings and change all those passwords that might be in those breaches. But again, it's just kind of a good example of how different password managers and different browsers, things like that can kind of help you keep track of those passwords and be able to catch those potential security flaws. All right, now that we've got our passwords strong and unique, we're going to kind of go into some other security measures that can kind of help you protect yourself beyond those passwords. And we kind of mentioned it a little bit at the very start of the presentation, but multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication is going to be the biggest thing that you can do. It will significantly make you safer online. It's going to increase your security dramatically. It's going to make it twice as hard to get in your accounts, especially if those passwords have become compromised. So most two-factor authentication, or again, multi-factor authentication, they're kind of the same word for the same thing. They're going to help you out again, keep your account safe, secure. They're kind of that best line of defense, what a lot of cybersecurity experts say. So we remind people to use those wherever they're available. So make sure you're using it. And you can take a lot of different options to do this. Kind of the big two are, you know, picking something you have, like a passcode or a text message that might send you a little code that you get, or maybe it's an authentication app or security key. And there's also options to use something you are, like your fingerprint or your face scan. We've got a couple of quick examples with these. We'll kind of start, you know, with those knowledge factors, those something you know. Again, that's going to be something like a security question or a PIN that's sent to you maybe on your phone, or you know, maybe they'll email it to you in some accounts. Depends kind of how you have those set up, but go into those settings and kind of see what options are there. You know, a lot of times, especially work environments, we'll do those possession factors, something you have, like here our work, we have our phones, and we'll get those push alerts and things like that. They'll say, did you try to log in? Something like that. That's a good example of that. Some people use these hardware tokens where you have to have it plugged into your computer to be able to get into those accounts once you try to log in. So it's checking to make sure those little tokens are there, that you're got that plugged in. Again, it's that possession factor. You have it to get into those accounts. And there might also be a thing, you know, a lot of us use especially face recognition. So again, that's that something you are factor that you're using with that fingerprint. I know a lot of the older Apple phones things use that fingerprint. For some reason, I was a little reluctant to use that at first, but you know, the face scan I'm a little more comfortable with for some reason. I don't know why, but kind of the big thing with that is to just kind of go through, see what those options are, and to find the one that you're comfortable using. And most importantly, just make sure you're using something. And again, we'll just kind of show our kind of popular forms. Text message, I know I get those a good bit for a lot of my accounts. So if somebody tries to sign in to a bank account or a social media account, you might get a text message kind of with that code or that, was this you? Again, applications are very popular, especially in businesses. The fingerprint face scan, those are all great. Again, it's just kind of a good reminder to use that wherever it's available, especially email accounts, financial services. You know, some of our folks tell us here at Consumer Affairs that if your bank or your financial companies aren't offering two-factor authentication, you really want to press them and ask them why they're not doing that. I would find it very hard to believe that there's any out there not at least offering now. I know a lot of mine require it, so that's great. Again, social media accounts, if you haven't set those up on your social media accounts, go ahead and do that. I know we get a lot of emails and calls here from folks who say they're locked out of their social media accounts. Somebody's hacked into it and changed all the passwords. They can't get access now. So again, two-factor authentication is going to help you set that up so nobody else can get into those accounts, even if they have your password. And also kind of consider it on online stores that you might use. And a lot of gaming and streaming services will offer it as well. So again, kind of use it wherever it's available. That was kind of the first part of my main slide on this next one. Again, use it wherever you're able to. Make sure you opt in if they give you that choice. Make sure you're clicking in and doing that. And a lot of times, like I said, it may be called a variety of things, may be listed as two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. Sometimes you'll see two-step. But just kind of make sure you're going into those settings, especially on your phone, things like that. But you might have to go into those account settings and then maybe privacy or something like that to find those options to be able to turn it on. But just kind of look for it, again, turn it on, and then confirm that it's been turned on. And the next time you log into those accounts, it should require it for you to be able to get in there. We also kind of know that our phones are target to all sorts of cyber attacks and scammers, things like that that are coming to you. Get a lot of questions about this one, and you know, I just had somebody ask me about this today, and kind of the best answer with your phones is just don't answer those unknown numbers or respond to text messages from unknown numbers. You might also want to add, you know, spoofing. Sometimes, you know, even if you do look like it recognizes that number, it's not always who it says it is. But, you know, the big thing is don't answer those calls or text messages from unknown numbers. And you may also want to consider call blocking resources or kind of using any of those settings that are going to send unknown numbers to voicemail, anything like that. And a lot of times those phones have those things built into them. So again, just kind of go into those settings, see what options are there. And one of the really good resources you can do is to report junk calls and text. They may call it something different, especially on your smartphone, but usually if you kind of get those calls or messages, you can click a button on there that will either say report scam or report junk, report phishing. It will say something like that. And a lot of times they'll give you that option to block it as well when you're doing that, especially if you're reporting it as a potential scam, it will give you that option usually right away to block that number. And the one thing that is kind of hard to talk people into doing sometimes is signing up for the Do Not Call registry. But I really want to encourage you to do that if you have not done so already. And I know some folks kind of say it doesn't work, but it will kind of help you find out who the good guys and bad guys are. Because, you know, if you're signed up on the Do Not Call registry and you're getting a lot of calls, you know that those people who are calling you are probably somebody you don't want to deal with. You don't want to do business with them. So they're probably, you know, not one of the good guys per se. So you can go to donotcall.gov or you can call that number right there on the screen. And it is kind of tied in with the Federal Trade Commission. And it was created in 2003 to stop unwanted sales calls. That's kind of the big thing to mention with that. I know we had people time to time who tell us I'm on the do not call list and I'm getting a call from so-and-so and I've told them not to call me. And they'll say it's an individual, somebody that they know. And they say, I've told them not to call me anymore. Well, do not call registry only applies to sales calls. It's not going to apply to, you know, that cousin you don't want to talk to anymore or anything like that. But it is free to register. if it's a residential phone number. So you can put your phone number in there and it's free. And after you sign up, within that 31 days, it's kind of that time frame that you should stop seeing those phone calls coming in from all those salespeople. And one of the good rules for that, again, it's going to impact especially telemarketers, things like that. And there are kind of federal rules that go in place with telemarketers. So just kind of know they're not supposed to call before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. So again, if you're getting calls outside of that window, you know they may not be legitimate people or they're bad businesses. So telemarketers, they shouldn't be calling you before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. And they're not allowed to be abusive or lie on the terms of their offers. And there's certain types of payment they're not allowed to ask you for. So if you're getting questions on your phone that involve any of these, you know they're potentially a scammer or a bad business with bad intentions. They're not allowed to ask you to pay with a cash-to-cash money transfer. You can kind of click that link if you downloaded the slides and learn a little bit more about some of that. And they're not allowed to ask you to give them a PIN from a reloadable debit card or gift card. And they're not allowed to ask for bank account information to create a type of check that you never see or sign. That's called a remotely created payment order. I just want to kind of touch up on a few things that the do not call registry doesn't do. And again, we kind of mentioned that at the start. It doesn't apply to every unwanted call. And it's not going to stop calls from political organizations. I know if you're like my parents, you have your phone blowing up constantly with different political groups and candidates asking for things, but the do not call registry does not apply to political organizations, and it doesn't apply to charities, debt collectors, informational calls like, you know, your school might be one of those that calls whenever there's a cancellation or something like that. And kind of the important thing, again, it doesn't stop scammers from calling. You know, they're not obeying the law anyways, so they don't really care if you're on the do not call registry. But again, if you are on it, you know, that kind of raises the red flag of some of the calls that are getting through, that they may not be who they say they are. And of course, we want to remind everybody kind of to protect your online identity. So if you're signing up for a new account or an app, or you get a new device, you want to immediately set that information, the sharing privacy policies, things like that, go into those security settings and see what's available and make those decisions, what you're comfortable with sharing with them. And you kind of want to regularly check these things to make sure nothing's changed. And if sometimes when you update, especially a device, that some of those settings may get changed, so you want to go into those things kind of frequently and make sure that all the privacy and security settings are what you like and what you want to use. And we always remind people to share with care. You know, if you're posting anything online, you kind of want to think twice about it and just kind of look at the types of information that you're posting, especially on social media. And, you know, encourage people to set those social media accounts to be private. Unless you're, you know, using that for your work, you probably are fine setting it up for private and just sharing that information among your friends and not, you know, everybody who's out there in the world. But when you're posting stuff online or social media, you want to consider what a post reveals, who might see it, and how it might affect you or others. And kind of an important thing to tell people, identity thieves can kind of use this information that you post online. They can do a lot of different things with it, but sometimes they'll use it to try and guess those passwords, security questions. Worst case, they're using that information to try to steal your identity. But again, just kind of take a look at what you're posting online and think about the different ways that it might be used and who's seeing it. Another piece of advice that we offer, and I always tell people when I go out and do presentations and stuff, kind of look at your payments and what you're using online. And really the best option is if you're using online stuff, using a credit card is going to give you better protections than a debit card. Just kind of keep in mind that there are more consumer protections for credit cards if something goes wrong. And if your debit card gets stolen, it is a direct line into your bank account. So if you're using that account to pay power bill, anything like that, or your car payments or whatever, and that number gets breached and somebody has access to those numbers and they start using it, it can take a good bit of time to get that money back into your bank account. So that might impact those payments you have, like your car payment or your house, or any of those bills that come directly out of there. So that's kind of why we remind folks that using your credit card online is going to give you a little bit more protection. So you want to protect that debit card number as much as you can. So really consider using your credit card whenever you're making online purchases. And always monitor your statements. You want to make sure that if anything's coming up that you're catching it quickly. So you want to continuously check your accounts for any unauthorized activity, especially those financial accounts. Again, you might be wanting to go into your banking and your credit cards, things like that, and just kind of make sure that there's not any unauthorized activity. And if there is, you're reporting it pretty quickly to your bank, letting them know that something's happened, and that will help you out too. So the better, the faster you report those things, the better. Because there are cases where people come to us and, they find something happened a year or 2 years later, or even sometimes later than that. But, time is kind of the important factor with that. You want to report those things quickly. So make sure you're monitoring those accounts. And you can also set up alerts. A lot of times they're free. They're easy things that you can do just to kind of help you watch how your debit or credit card's used. And you can set up those alerts with transactions or logins. So if there's a login on a new device, you might get a text message asking if you tried to log in, and you would say yes, and then it will let you into the account. So that's kind of like a little two-factor step there, but you can do that with that, or you can set up, I know my credit card has a thing where I can set it so if I get any online transactions that have been made with that card, I get a text message. We use those types of alerts. And you can also set them up for dollar values or balances, low balances especially. So if you get below a certain dollar amount in your account, you might get a message telling you to watch how you're spending, that your account's low. So you can kind of go in on each one of those financial accounts, see what their settings are, see what kind of things work best for you, and take advantage of those. Again, they're usually free, so it's a great tool to help you kind of monitor what's happening with all those banking accounts. And I know free Wi-Fi hotspots, especially ones that are in public. I know people always ask me, the cabin that they rent, they use the Wi-Fi because there's no phone service. Just kind of keep in mind those types of things. Public Wi-Fi networks aren't always secure. So just keep in mind that somebody else may be kind of monitoring what you're doing while you're connected. And always tell people avoid logging into financial accounts especially, but also kind of consider your email, social media accounts, things like that. You just kind of want to keep a guard in case somebody is able to get in those and monitor, what sites you're going to or what things you're entering while you're online. One thing that can help you is using a virtual private network, maybe a personal mobile hotspot. I know a lot of our phones have those mobile hotspots on it, so especially with work, whenever I have to do something out and about that's not, in our building, I'll use my phone, use that hotspot, connect my laptop to my phone, and get on the internet that way. So that way I'm not kind of on any unsecure networks or, there's that danger of somebody with bad intentions kind of monitoring what I'm doing. And you might also want to consider going into your My Social Security account. That's going to be the official government website to manage your Social Security benefits, especially even if you're not near the age of being able to get Social Security checks. You can go ahead and set up an account. And kind of the reason we tell people to do that is you want to do it before somebody else does. So if your information's out there in a security breach and they have your name, Social Security number, things like that, you want to set up these accounts before somebody else does it. So you can go to ssa.gov/myaccount and then create that account and be able to make sure nobody else has done that and monitoring your benefits instead of you. Another great resource that's out there is being able to opt out of these pre-screened offers. You may get things like insurance things or credit card applications, things like that in the mail. A lot of times they're kind of monitoring credit reports and asking credit bureaus for information on people who meet certain guidelines or kind of fit into certain qualifications that they have. And then they're going to start putting all that stuff in the mail to you, sending you those applications for insurance, credit cards, things like that. But you can go to optoutprescreen.com and let them know that you don't want that information shared. You can also call that phone number there, 888-5-OPT-OUT, and that will help you stop getting all those things in the mail. And of course, we always encourage people to monitor their credit reports, and we recommend using annualcreditreport.com. And that's because it's authorized by federal law. They have guidelines of information that they can gather, or they're not supposed to share that information as well when you use that website. We know there are a lot of free sites out there, but a lot of times they're using information that you've put in there. Somehow they might be selling data or just tracking data on you. Just kind of keep that in mind. Annualcreditreport.com is free. You can get one free report from each of the credit reporting agencies every week. So that's Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. It's not going to contain your credit score, but it will give you those free credit reports, and you can get one a week. It's probably not necessarily, to check that often, but you do want to get in it pretty frequently and look at it. And kind of, the guidelines usually been at least once a year. You might want to do it a little bit more than that, especially if you get security breach notices in the mail or anything like that. But you want to go in, make sure all the information on your credit reports are accurate and that it belongs to you, and that there's nothing on there that you see that's unusual or accounts that you don't recognize. And if you do, you might want to consider a fraud alert, and that will last 1 year. And basically it's going to tell businesses that might be viewing your credit reports to take extra steps to verify your identity, especially if you've applied for something. They'll want to take extra steps to make sure you are who you say you are and that nobody else is opening those accounts in your name. But if you need to place a fraud alert, you'll just call one of the credit reporting bureaus, again, Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion, and they'll kind of notify the others that a fraud alert needs to be put in place. And if there are signs of fraud or identity theft, you can get an extended fraud alert on that, and that will last for 7 years. And the tool that we always tell people to take advantage of, again, it's free. You can put a freeze on your credit reports. Again, this is different than putting a freeze on your credit card where you can't use, any spending on that account. That's not what this is. We freeze on your credit reports. So basically, you're stopping access to those information about your credit reports. It's going to stop new lines of credit from being created in your name. So basically, you go to all 3 of the credit reporting agencies, again, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. You can put that freeze in place, and it's going to stop other people from opening lines of credit in your name. So it would stop, like a new car loan or a credit card, or, maybe somebody's trying to open up a account to get a expensive cell phone with service plan or something in your name. But it would stop some of those accounts from being created. It's going to be a great tool that you can use to really protect your identity. And then if you need to get a car loan or anything like that, and you need to apply for those new lines of credits, you can put a thaw in place, and that's basically going to lift that freeze for that amount of time that you need to apply for those new lines of credit. And it's a good tool that you can take advantage of. I know I had to do this in December when I got a new car. So basically I left my house. Before I left, I put that thaw in place, and you can set it, if you're using the website, you can set it for a certain amount of time. So I know I put that thaw in place that morning. I went to the car dealership, applied for the car loan. Once that was approved and everything was signed, that freeze then went back in place and basically prevents other people from kind of doing those things with your credit that you're trying to do. So you want to kind of put those freezes in place while you're not actively using your credit. And it's a great tool to take advantage of, and again, it's free. Kind of our main takeaways as we're kind of wrapping up It's always kind of a good reminder that no security method is 100% safe. So you should be combining as many things as you can do with your personal information as possible. And again, just because you follow the recommendations for strong password doesn't mean you can forget the rest. You should be using all of these things together. And again, the more security measures you use, the higher the protection. Somebody asked the best way to keep track of all your passwords. Again, those password managers are going to help you do that. That would be a great tool to take advantage of. We do have that link in the slides of where you can go and kind of get some recommendations if you have, trouble doing that. And I know a lot of times your phones might have a built-in password manager as well if you're doing that. Somebody asked, with identity theft possibilities, if you're allowed to get a new social security number. My understanding with that is it's pretty rare that they grant a new social security number. Sounds like it pretty much has to be a situation of some kind of immediate danger, or, a lot of times something like that. So, it can be pretty difficult to get a new social security number. So that's kind of one of those reasons we recommend monitoring your credit reports and things like that, and kind of making sure all that stuff's protected. And again, freezing your credit reports will be a way to make sure that if somebody does have that information, that they're not able to use it. So if you have those freezes on your credit reports, that's going to prevent them from using those social security numbers and things like that to open new credit cards, or again, car loans, any kind of loan like that. And again, just kind of monitoring all of your accounts will help you with that. Somebody asked, how do you download the slides? Hopefully you were able to get that, but there should be a little file button on the platform there. I can see if I can get back to that in a little bit, but if you haven't been able to download them, shoot me an email and I'll reply to it and let you know, or I'll reply to it and give you those slides if you weren't able to get that. Somebody asked about using an Excel spreadsheet. I'm assuming with passwords. I know some people will do that, and then they'll lock that Excel spreadsheet up with the password. So you, again, using that one password to get into the list of passwords, that can be effective. If you're looking for app recommendations, it says app recommendations as well. Again, that staysafeonline.org, they have a lot of good resources. We don't really have one that we're able to recommend, as being a government agency and being kind of favoring one company over the other. We try not to do that, but there are resources out there that will help you kind of get those recommendations. Do not call. Somebody asked about Ed about being able to use your cell phone numbers. You should be able to go in there and put your cell phone number into the do not call registry. Again, kind of the problem is once scammers and these bad actors have those phone numbers, they don't really care if you're on the do not call registry. So if your cell phone is on the do not call registry, that is one good tool. I should have put this in here. The Federal Communications Commission, their website has a lot of really good links and information on different phone providers and different resources that they all have. I can email you that if that's helpful, but they have a lot of information about specific phone providers. And again, that might be the best way for you too, just kind of getting in touch with whoever your phone is through and seeing what they have. A lot of times they have something free. A lot of times it's already built into the phone. So there's probably a setting somewhere in there that you'll be able to see it. But we appreciate you being with us today, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you.